What is up everybody, my name's Tyler Potts and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be creating our first Svelte JS application. In this application we're creating a to-do app where we have this basic header with a little input bar where we're going to say new to-do, and then we can hit enter to create a new to-do, and it's going to add the to-do down here. We're then going to be able to delete different to-dos and basically create a to-do app. So again, this one I've left here specifically because I haven't made a lot of videos recently and I am sorry, but I hope to be able to do a lot more in the future. Let me know if you like this Svelte JS app in the comments below, and without further ado, let's continue the video. So first thing we need to look at is actually what is Svelte, and as you can see here, it calls it a cybernetically enhanced web apps. I don't like that. I don't like how that is said, but however. So it says here, you write less code. There's no virtual DOM because you're actually writing. Oh, hello, go back. Go back. Go back. Svelte compiles your code to tiny, framework-less, vanilla JavaScript. Your app starts fast and stays fast. Nice and truly reactive. No more complex state management libraries. Svelte brings reactivity to JavaScript itself. And the only thing we need to really look at right now is this thing down here. So this is how you create a new project. You would say npx digit svelte JS /template, which gets you a basic boilerplate for Svelte JS. And then you have this, you give it a name. After that, you will cd into your project, install the dependencies, because there's a few dependencies you need to run the dev, and then you run the development site. So, and as you can see here, this is kind of how it looks. You've got a script. You can also have a style tag in here where we can say H1 and we can say color red. There you go. Now that is red. So you can add style, scripts, and that all in the same file so you can see what you're doing. Some people don't like this. Some people do. Oh, look, there's an explanation of styles, triggers, stuff like this. There's loads of different things you can do. But we're going to be going over a few of these in our application itself. So first things first, let's go and create our first application. So let's move this over here. Let's move it over there. Let's make it as tall as possible. And let's stop the server. So we're going to cd out of this. We're going to cd into our 100 days of code. And I'm going to cd into day 75 of Svelte. Now there's nothing in here, but we're going to create basically a new directory. So we're going to run the command. So I'm going to say npx digit svelte JS /template, and then we're going to give it a name. In our case, it's going to be Svelte to do. And I apologize for always doing to-do apps. They're just the most simplest things to get the basics of a framework or a language, because to-do apps, it's basically CRUD functionality. You create, read, and delete. You can add update in there too, but in our cases we don't. But it's just basics and it helps you learn all the basics. It's a good little app. We can make more in the future. I'm planning to do loads of different more advanced stuff, but for now this will do. So now we've done that, we can cd into our Svelte to do app, and if we list, you can see there's a few files here. There's a rollup.config.js. There's a source, public, package, JSON, and README. First things we're going to do is say npm I to install all the dependencies we need to install. So I'm going to let this run, and I'll see you in un momento. Okay guys, that took about 13 seconds, as it says right there. Now, if we clear this and we actually do code dot, this is going to open up my preferred text editor. You can open up yours however you would open up your text editor. I'm going to make this full screen, but I am going to bring it in just a little bit there. Nice. Now let's have a look at the file structure. So first thing, we're going to look at the config. This is basically just a big config. It's kind of like Webpack. For like Vue.js, they all have their own one. This uses rollup. Webpack is for like what most other things use. It's a similar thing. So you don't actually need to touch that if you don't want to. If you know what you're doing, then touch it. If not, leave it. It'll work just fine. Now, in the package.json, you'll see a bunch of different things, mainly def dependencies and then actual dependencies. We've got the surf CLI. As you can see there, a lightweight CLI program to surf static sites. Then we have all the rollup configuration, the Svelte package, and npm run all. So if you look in the scripts, we have this build, which would actually build your project, auto build, def, which basically runs a def element server, start, which actually runs a public server. So if you was to actually start, and then the start def, which would run a development def, if that makes sense. The one we'll mainly be using today is development or def. So let's come out here. Next up, we have a few more files. We'll go look in public first. So this is your index page. This is where your body will be, your whatever you code write will be compiled to. So it will get compiled to this bundle.js and then outputted your HTML inside these body tags. And here you can change the name of the title of your to-do app. So we're going to say Svelte to do. And then as you can see here, we have a few things. We have the favicon, global CSS, and bundle CSS. Bundle CSS is what is compiled from your inline CSS style tags inside your Svelte components, as you can see here. But global is this global one with all these styles in. I actually have some styles for this app because this isn't a styling thing. I'm going to paste these in. And as you can see, it's very basic. There's just this reset. There's this header, a nav, h1, input, to do with a p tag, and then to do with a span. This is the remove button. This is the actual to do text. This is the to do container, the input, the title, the nav bar, and the header. The header contains the nav and the input. The nav contains the h1. So you'll see how the structure is once we're done. So that's all we're doing there. So I'm actually going to write the CSS in line with this, but as you can see, this is how you would write it, just how you would normally write inline CSS and inline script tags. So let's delete the style tag from in here to start with. Now, we also want to delete this. So what this is saying here, export let name, what this actually does, so if we save this, and let's run this app quickly before we start removing stuff. So let's say npm run def. So this is going to build us a log. As you can see, it says it started there. If we come over here and we refresh, you'll see there's nothing on screen. Nice, so let's go over to our main.js, and also let's open up the terminal so we can see what's going on. So inside the terminal, let's bring this up a little. You'll say this is h1. It's got a color of white because of my text, but if I remove that, you'll see it says hello world. And if we come to this main.js, this is actually where we initialize the Svelte app. So actually here we call app to new app, and we're pulling the app component from our root file here, and then we're exporting it as default. So here we see we're passing props of name, which is, if you see in our app, we have this export let name, and then we're using these tags or these curly braces to output the name variable. Now, what export does is basically say this is a prop. Anything with export before it means it's being passed down as a prop. As you can see here, props are being passed into this, and we've got the name, which is world. We can change this to say Tyler. If we hit save, you'll see a refresh. Oh, we need to remove that color quickly. And actually it says hello Tyler. So let's close this and let's get back to the app. So the first thing we want to do is delete this. We don't want this prop being passed down. We actually don't want any prop. So we're going to remove this whole prop here. It's not necessary for this, what we're doing. This here, the target, is where we want to output our code. So we could actually write some more code and actually output it somewhere else, but we're going to output it basically directly inside the document body. So let's close that. Now we have the script. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start writing out our markup. So we're going to write, I'm using Emmet. So just before we continue, I really do need to mention that I am using a extension called, not settings, an extension called, we'll find it in 1 second, Svelte, it will be, where is it? There it is. I'm using this Svelte JS language support for VS Code. So as you can see, this actually highlighted. If you normally write this, this would not have these highlight. It would be like a plain text. So installing this helps. And then I also have a few different things, Intellisense, Again, tells you about data and tells you what each function does and stuff, snippets and all stuff like that. You don't have to have those. I've also got emit enabled. So if we go to my settings and we say JSON, because this will bring up somewhere we can click into JSON. We go into JSON. You'll see down here where we have this emit include languages, Svelte HTML. This basically means use HTML emit like snippets for HTML inside of a Svelte file, which is here. So that's kind of how that works. If you get stuck, then just drop me a comment and I can help you out with that. But yeah, so that's where we are at now. So let's start off by writing our marker. So I'm going to say .page wrapper. I like to make sure there's a wrapper around my stuff, although it's not necessary. It's just a thing I do. And then we now need to create a header component. So we're going to create a separate component straight away. So in our source, we're going to create a new folder called components. And in components, we're then going to create a file and call this header.svelte. Oh, that's not it. Header.svelte. Now, as you can see in here, we need to basically write our script tag. And we can do a few things here, but for now, we're not going to do anything. And now we're going to write up our markup. So let's do header. In here, let's do nav with a H1. And inside H1, we're going to say tileless to do apps, because I make loads of to do apps. I'm then going to do an input. Oh, that's not an input. An input of type text. And for now, we're just going to leave it like that. Hit save. And if we come over here, let's shrink this down. And let's refresh the page. Nothing's going to happen. The reason for that is because we need to import it into our main app component. So we're going to say import header from /components/header. Now, if we go, we now need to call it from inside of our markup, and we're going to call the header component. I'm going to hit save. And if we refresh, sorry, we're missing the .svelte extension there. Now, we should hopefully get something exporting to our page, but for some reason we have not. Oh, there we go. It just took a couple of times. I don't know if you need this extension. Normally you don't, but it seems that we need it for this case. I'm just going to grab a drink of water. I'm sorry if I forget to cut this out. It is very hot in the UK. I know the UK hot is not hot like every other country, but for us this is extremely hot and I am melting. But anyway, let's crack on. So we've got this header and we can type in it, right? We hit enter, it does nothing. So there's a few things we need to pass down to our header app. Well, there's one thing. We need to create a function called, so we're going to say const new to do, because this is how we're going to create new to do. So we're going to pass down a to do variable. And then in here, we're going to say to do's is equal to the new to do ... to do's. Now we need to create this variable. So we're going to say let to do's equal an empty array. So as you can see here, this is just creating variables. In SvelteJS, you don't need to have a state or anything to manage this. This is just written in JavaScript, just basic JavaScript. And as you can see here, we're getting our to-dos and we're appending in this to-do. I'm actually going to, no, actually, that's right. That's how we want it. So we need to now pass this to-do down to our header component so we can use it from inside our header component. So we're going to say new to-do is equal to, and we're going to use curly braces to pass things down, and we'll say new to-do. Now, inside of our header, we need to actually pass through, we need to actually get that prop. So we're going to say export let, so it always has to be export let, and we'll say new to do. And that is basically going to say we want to bring down our new to do prop. We're going to basically say, we're going to create a, so first things first, let's create a new variable in here called to do or to do, because this is going to be the to do we write inside of our input bar. Now we're going to go here. So we now need to bind that to do variable to our input. Like we do with Vue.js, React and everything else, we're going to say bind curly braces. So kind of like how you would do a fee bind in Vue.js, but it's just called bind, and you're going to say value, because that's what we want to bind to, and we're going to say to do. So now when we write in here, so if we just say, let's create a on, so now this way we can pass through anything. You can say on click, on key down, which is the one we're going to use. We're going to say key down handler. Now we want to go up here and we want to say const key down handler is equal to an arrow function, which is going to actually be passed through e, which is the event, and we're then going to say if e.keycode is equal to 13, which is equal to the enter key, we're going to say console.log to do, and then we're going to clear the to do and set it back to state. So after we hit enter, we're going to re-clear what's inside of here. So if we go to our console here and we write in here test and hit enter, you'll see it writes it there, and that is basic. That's how easy it is to write a simple binding action with a key event in SvelteJS. So Svelte, although I wouldn't call it my favorite, I still believe Vue.js tops all of these, and so does React is pretty good as well. I think Svelte I would use Svelte over, even though it's probably not production ready, over Angular, because nobody likes Angular. Don't tell any Angular people I said that. Yeah, anyway, let's carry on. Just ignore what I just said. So now what we need to do is actually we need to use this new to do function we passed down, and we're going to say new to do, and in here we're just going to pass through the to do, literally like that. It's going to call this function and it's going to work. But before we do that, let's go in here and basically console log our to do's, just so we know what's happening if it's being called. So let's go in here and say test, hit enter, and as you can see it passed through test. Now let's say something else like another one, a new one. There you go. Both of them are now in there in the array, which is perfect. So we know it's working so far. So that's really cool. Next up, let's go and create a to-dos. So a new thing called to-dos, a component called to-do. So let's create that. Right click and say new file. I'm going to say to-do. So this is what's going to display our to-dos on screen. So we're going to say to-dos.svelte. And in here, we're going to write our script. So to script this, again, how we get our things. And we actually want to bring some props down. So we're going to say export let to-dos, because we're going to pass all our to-dos through. And then we're going to say export let remove to do, which is going to be our function to remove each to do. And they're the only two things we need in our script tag. So we're going to create a section.todos, which is basically just going to be our wrapper for this. And now the way you do a for loop, so we've got a loop through our to-dos. Let's actually go here and pass these down before we continue. Let's duplicate this and change this to to-dos, copy that, paste that there. There we go. So now we've actually imported our to-dos component. We can place it in here. And now we can pass down some props. So we're going to say to-dos is equal to to-dos, our to-dos variable. We're then going to say our remove to-do is equal to our remove to-do function. Problem is we don't actually have a remove to-do function. So let's create that. We'll say const remove to-do is equal to index, because we're only going to, because this is a simple app and we're using just an array, we're just going to remove them by the index. And because this is reactive, every time we remove one, it's not going to mess up our other, it's going to re-render. So it's going to re-render the index of all of them and recalculate the index which every other item has, which means it's not going to mess up our to-do list, if that makes sense. It's not going to mess up the indexing. So in here, we're just going to say to-dos is equal to to-dos dot filter, and we're going to pass through I, and we say I is not equal to index. That's one too many equals, and that should basically say that when we remove the to-dos, basically we're removing it. Oh, actually that needs to be So we actually need to say, because this is going to come, I would end up being the thing, we need to say to do I, because we need to get the index and then the to do separately, because else it won't work. Like that, and that is how we're going to remove our to dos. So we've passed that function down to our to dos. Now back onto the loop. Now to loop in SvelteJS, it's slightly different syntax to you normally see. If you've ever used something like Twig, you might have some sort of idea, or Pug or something similar. You'll see that if I write I'm going to write these brackets, I'm going to say each. And if you look over to the right, it shows you how you can write this. So the example here says, if you go to each, you give list as item. So you give it your array as the array item. So this would be your array item. You can then handle the markup, and then you'll say else handle empty list state. So this is really cool. So if there's nothing in the states, you don't have to check if there's nothing in there. If there isn't anything in there, you handle it, and it does that all for you. So you don't have to write an if statement to check if it's empty. So in here, we're going to say each to do, to do's as to do, and then we're going to say colon I. So that's going to give us a index for those. But now we need to end our each. So we're going to do backslash each. We don't need an else statement in this case, because we're not going to say anything if there's nothing there. Actually, you know what? We can. We're going to say, we'll write a paragraph saying, write your first to do. Hit save, and that's now going to hopefully print out write your first to do. Right? Hello? No? That's the syntax, right? Did I write that right? I think maybe we need to write something in here. P test. Tet. Write your first do. There you go. Yeah, we need to write something in here. So write your first do. I'm sorry, I've just realized this is slightly over that. There you go. It's a bit better. Right, so now in here we want to create a class with to do, or a diff with the class of to do. We're then going to add a p, and we're going to pass through the to do. So that's going to be our actual to do item. We're then going to add a span, which is going to say and times. And if we hit save, it's still going to say write your first do. So now we need to say a new to do, hit enter. And as you can see, we get this nice little thing here, styled by the markup we wrote in our global CSS. It's all going to be in a Git repo in the description. So don't forget to check that out if you want this, but it's very basic. You can style it up yourself. And now if we click X, it doesn't do anything. We need to actually add an on click thing. So we'll say on click is equal to, and we're going to say remove, we're going to go bam, remove to do, and we're going to pass the index. Now the reason we're doing an arrow function before we call this is because if we didn't, it would create an infinite loop where it was forever calling this remove to do. In this way, it's not going to forever call it because it's not going to remove it, if that makes sense. So because you know how it is when you in JavaScript, if you add parentheses, it actually counts as calling the function once, even if it's already in a block. So that's really cool. So that should be that now, I believe. And that actually might be it. So if we write in here, my first to do, and now we say our second to do, let's say my second to do, and then just another to do. Now let's delete my second to do. There we go. So now if we delete my first to do, it removes 2. And again, if we remove the to do, there you go. So we've added key event handling, so key on press, so we can add enter to get this key down event. We've added obviously the way to view it, remove it, and obviously add it, and some styling. So we've gone over quite a few little things inside of SvelteJS, but there is a lot more. Again, I don't think it's got enough yet to compete with Vue.js and React, but I think it has enough to do some damage in the framework war, what's going on right now. Framework library, whatever you want to call them. So this is really cool. So this has been our first to do app, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, I was about to say a like, but leave a sub. And if you have any feedback, comments, then drop it in the description, the comments below. God, you can tell I'm rusty with this, guys, can't you? But without further ado, guys, thank you for watching this video. Check out the patrons at the end of this video, and thank you all very much for watching all the way to the end of this video. Peace out.